You have to choose temporary pain for long-term gain. One thing would be to grow small, to be comfortable and okay with growing in short increments rather than big. You have to look at every minute of every day and go, what is the best use of my time as it relates to the growth of this company right now? YouTube University is a thing.
Right.
You have more than enough information at your fingertips to know anything.
In this episode, we're speaking with Mike Arnold from Creekside Outdoor Living. Mike's based in Chicago, and he's big on Instagram. We're going to talk a lot about sales. We're going to talk a lot about company culture. And we're going to talk about how Mike's become a great entrepreneur. Let's jump in. Maybe we can start, Mike, just with like a Cole's notes of kind of your history and how you got into the business.
I didn't grow up thinking I would be a landscaper. I wasn't a child aspiring to be in landscaping. And in fact, when I set off to go to college, it was for construction management. My dad was in construction. I always loved being in a blue-collar workplace environment. I always really enjoyed that. I love the smell of sawdust. I always remember that. Went to college, was for architectural engineering, construction management, and I started a little lawn gig just on the side to pay my way through college. And I started to find myself skipping class to go work. Some of the classes I enjoyed. They were architecture, they were construction stuff, but they were 3 hours long, using AutoCAD in a room that had no windows. And I'm going, I can't wait to go work. I can't wait to go be outside. And I started thinking to myself, you know what? What if I took this thing off? What if things just took off and I could always come back? I could always come back to finish these classes and get a degree. And so that's what I did. The business, while I was in college, did start taking off. It wasn't necessarily my intent at first. I was just taking jobs and figuring out how to do it.
Was it just word of mouth?
Yeah. A little
Cool.
putting a little bit of stuff out there, but it was very soft.
Right.
I didn't really have the intent for it to be something huge. And so I just kind of made the decision to say, screw it. Let's just see what happens. And it kind of took off from there. Right. So with a buddy of mine, I had been doing some landscaping stuff prior. And so kind of had a taste of it, knew something of what to do. It wasn't total cold turkey going into this thing. Right. I knew a little bit of what to do, the right things to buy, and the right way to do things. But when it started coming to patios and all that, I had no idea. I mean, to this day, I've never fully installed a patio.
Right.
I've had help and I had wisdom from other people that I hired, but that was just it, is that I'd take jobs and figure out how to do it later.
Right.
So kind of freaky when you think about it,
Yeah.
but it ended up working out. And that's kind of been the theme of the business is I've grown it by getting the right people who were smarter than me. That's always what I've tried to do. Knowing and being fully aware of what my weaknesses are and what my limitations are, and finding a way to not fix it, but just exploit it with people and say, hey, here's where I excel. Here's what I should be doing. And I don't excel in this, and this person does. So let's put him in place and grow this business. So that's kind of the sum of it.
Amazing. And this was like 08.
February of 08 was when when I parted ways with my buddy mowing grass till 9:00 at night.
Right.
Good friend of mine, still one of my best friends to this day. But that's when I decided, I'm just gonna do this on my own and try to make some of my own money on my own. Yeah.
It's funny that you say, you figure it out. I've got a good friend who's actually a business partner in a different business who always says, we'll build the plane in the air. It always cracks me up. And sometimes that strategy works out.
Yeah.
Right? Like often I think as young entrepreneurs, when you're keen, you can make a lot of things happen. And it's an interesting model. And I think it's great advice for younger guys who are getting started in the business to put themselves in the position to have people that can teach them.
Yeah.
And to hire well. When you first got going and like, did you have a good sense of what sort of skill set you needed right away and what type of work was going to be
when you first start getting going and you've already been cutting grass for people, like it's pretty simple, because that's what it was when I first started. It was just, you had a mowing route, and I got a couple right standers and just went to town. So no, I mean, I already knew what to do. Not a ton of, how to bill it, but you figure that out by failing forward. Right.
Right.
So,
What, do you still do much maintenance?
We do. So we have three crews, and we used to have all a hodgepodge of residential and commercial, but we actually went through a year where we purged all of our residential clients, and strictly went to commercial. So that drastically cut down our crew size.
Mhm.
And then now we're back to where we were with crew size by gaining those commercial clients. So we've really taken kind of a shift in our model of maintenance to be semi-commercial only. Folks that we have year-round service with the snow and the
Mhm.
fertilizer and all that kind of stuff, and select residential clients. We have a fully uh, built fertilizer department, so fertilizer and commercial maintenance. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. And was it like strategic, like moving away from the residential?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, put it this way. At one point, we were Creekside Landscaping, and then I
Mhm.
shifted the name to Creekside Outdoor Living because there is a lot of folks out there who will brand themselves as all they have to do is go buy a truck, trailer, and mower, and suddenly they're a landscaper,
Yeah.
right? Where's the barrier of entry there?
Right.
Not much. And so if we were going to diversify and say, hey, we're a niche type of company, we needed to do something different and label ourselves as something different. And so even with the lawn care market, it was kind of a move to step away from where all these other folks are clamoring for the attention of people, and it was a bidding war to lose,
Mhm.
frankly, because when
Right.
you look at the numbers when you're just doing residential, and you have a lot of folks around you that are doing it, well, everybody's wanting business, so they're willing to do it for almost their cost
Right.
sometimes,
Right.
and we can't do that. So yeah, in a way, it was strategic. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think it's an important lesson for people too to realize. We actually had a conversation at the show earlier today about looking at kind of your bottom 5 or 10%
Hmm.
at the end of the season, because inevitably those 10% eat up 80% of the effort.
Yeah.
And whether it's they're not great payers, or they're very demanding, or the expectations don't equal the budget.
Yeah, or you have to have the people on staff to serve customers for 10 to 15 people, whereas a commercial client it might be one person.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to drastically increase your overhead for not much pay.
Right. Right. And I think it's a great move. And do you cater, like, are you in the city doing a lot of work, or are you kind of on the outer areas?
Well, I live in this city, but we're kind of in an outer area, so we're technically in Indiana. It's
Hmm.
it's sort of a suburb of Chicago. Chicago is still the heartbeat of all the surrounding areas, but
Right.
it's Northwest Indiana. It's Crown Point, Indiana. So we do have some goals to branch off and start doing some more work in Chicago, but
Hmm.
not until we feel like we fully saturated all of our opportunities with where we're at.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Have you found much of a change in the market in that area?
In our
Like,
area?
yeah, like in the past year. I mean, obviously, southern states, Canada, southern Ontario, a lot of the more urban areas of Canada are struggling, and I know it's similar in a lot of the U.S. States as well.
Well, our area is just a little bit unique because we have a lot of people that come from Chicago and end up moving out into our
Right.
area. So it's not necessarily like the best indication of like general overall, economy and market, because we have a surge of different type of people that are coming out to us. So it's growing our area by a lot.
Right.
There is unbelievable growth in the local economy by us. A lot of commercial development. So there's obviously then a lot more opportunity for clientele.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. And do you guys have a particular niche? I know you got into pools last year, and I know you'd been doing them for a while, but it looks like you're doing them in-house now.
Yeah.
And I see a pile of outdoor kitchens, some amazing paver projects, a
Yeah.
lot of retaining walls.
Yeah.
Um, Starting to think there was a job you guys did last year. Was it? I don't know if it was on a golf course, but it was a huge pond edge with, I don't know, if it was Technoblock or what you were using, but
Oh, that was Unilock. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But is that kind of your niche? Is those types of projects?
From the design build perspective,
Right.
yeah. And I mean, we rebranded to be, all of our social media is really centric on the design build, the outdoor space. And
Mhm.
so, really that the design build is our niche for right now. I mean, I do have a lot of goals for the company to grow hugely, if that's a word, into the commercial maintenance
is a word.
space. It is a word, thanks to certain politicians.
Yeah.
that is the commercial maintenance thing is something that I want to grow leaps and bounds. I because it's a repeatable process, and I know it's
Right.
something that we'll talk about. And that's something that you can set in place and just sell it, and you have one person, for life possibly, just like
Hmm.
Netflix, right?
Right.
When does Netflix ever call you for a renewal? Never.
Right.
You just keep paying. You
Right.
know, and so
Right.
subscription based services is definitely a really good business model. But as far as where we've been and where we are, yeah, I mean, we're it's outdoor living, so we have really, really strong designs. I really do think that we have, at least in our direct market, we probably have the best design team. I can't say for the entire Chicago market. 'Cause I can't be as biased to say like we're the best in the
Right.
entire Chicago area. No,
Right.
there's a lot of great companies, but in our direct area, man, we have a strong design sense, and obviously the installation as well. So that has been what we're really strong on is, I mean, yes, we do small jobs as well, but kind of focus in on the folks who are wanting a massive space in their backyard and not just a parking lot of pavers,
Right.
but
Right.
more
Some
designated
interest
space.
and
Yeah.
programming.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more that cities become more regulated, and that's happening a lot right now. We're
Yes.
experiencing a lot of
Even
that
in
right
our
now.
area too.
It's good and bad. It's
Hmm.
good and bad. It's good because you want to have a higher standard of build,
Hmm.
but bad because we have to jump through so many hoops. So that becomes even more niche when now you have more barriers of entry because other people who are just, they bought a truck, they can't just do a landscape job of that nature,
Right.
because you have to be well studied on what the regulations are, both in, homeowners associations and city and county and state and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, we're running into that heavily in Muskoka as well, and it's been good and bad. Like
yeah,
you say, I mean, some of the restrictions are a little tougher, but one of the things that it's done for us that's been amazing is we do a lot of design as well, or design build. But we're getting involved much earlier in projects now because customers now need a site plan to get their building permit.
yeah,
So we're getting stuff that's in the queue for a year and a half out.
yeah,
And usually if that process goes well, it leads right into landscape design, and then hopefully it make a good connection and the project goes well. And like talking about design, and I'm thinking more about some of the audience that may not have it. How long have you guys been using it, and how do you think it changed your
using
business?
design,
Yeah.
man. I mean, at least 85% of the life of the company.
Okay, so a long time.
Yeah, I mean, when you're showing up to somebody's house and they just want a mulch job, don't need a design for that. So
Right.
you're showing up to somebody's house and they want a 10 by 10 patio, you don't need a design for that. But anything above and beyond that, you have to,
Right.
and it has to be a design that is going to fit their needs and meet a budget, and then also confined by what we were just talking about with regulations and such. So, yeah, at least 80 to 85% of the life of the company we've been utilizing design. Yeah,
Yeah, good. That's amazing because I think it's one of those things that gets overlooked a lot.
yeah,
I talk to a lot of guys where, they have a certain expectation about the types of projects they'd like to do,
hmm,
but they have no means of getting there
yeah,
because they're not doing design or they're not working with designers. And I think that's another avenue in the landscape world where there are a lot of great designers available, to be able to reach out and collaborate and try and come up with something cool
Oh
for a
yeah,
customer.
yeah. I mean that you don't have to have somebody in house. We have a couple, but you don't have to have that. I mean, there's a handful of folks I can think right off the bat that are, they're subcontractors,
Mhm.
and so you send them the info, and they'll put together something great.
I think it's a good thing for a lot of people that own businesses to look at.
Hmm.
So, as an entrepreneur, what sort of skill set did you have when you started your business? Like, how did you educate yourself on how to run it properly? Because you've grown relatively quickly.
I don't know about relatively quickly because it took us, what, 15 plus years to get to where we are. So I mean, I'd say within the last 5, 6, 7 years, it was more rapid.
Mm-hmm.
But we were at a certain point for a very long time. But failing forward,
Right.
that's it.
Right.
I didn't go to school. I mean, I did go to school, but it even when I went, it wasn't for business or entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
I had no idea. I mean, I was at one point just writing regular checks to guys because I multiplied on my phone's calculator how many hours they worked by what I told them I'd pay them per hour.
Right. Right.
And I wasn't taking payroll stuff, taxes and stuff out. So I mean, I had no idea. And that was all just discovering and having more conversations with people like, yeah, you can't do that. You have to do it this way. Oh,
Right.
okay. So that the school of hard knocks, that's it.
What do you love about it now? Like now that you've had some success and your business is doing well and it's likely allowed you to do a lot of other things. Like what do you like? What gets you going now?
I really love my people. I love going to work every day. I love waking up at 5 a.m, getting my coffee and driving in. I don't, if somebody were to walk into my company tomorrow and say, I'll give you 10 million, I don't know that I'd take it. What would I do tomorrow?
Right.
So I really enjoy what we do. I enjoy consistently building the brand. We were just at Hardscape North America, and tons of people came up to me and recognized me and wanted to take pictures, and not that's not. I'm sure there's probably a small element of me that's like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Right.
Like, this is the only place where that would happen, right?
Right.
Big fish in a small pond. But aside from that, it just is like, wow, the thing that we've built is being recognized by people I've never met. And this group that God has allowed me to be the head of and put together because so much of it is not me. Like so much of it is so many other people that do these things and collaborate and put things together. Being able to be a part of that is just so cool. To have something that was nothing, to have it to where it is now, and bringing my guys with and letting them see that as well. That's just so cool. And people are recognizing people that I filmed,
Right.
that just makes me
Love
feel
the mechanic.
Yeah. Like that just makes me feel so good that like, okay, the brand is built. It's recognized nationwide over, not just our nation,
Absolutely.
it's recognized elsewhere. And people are saying that they get inspiration from certain, designs we posted. Makes us feel like we're doing something right,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people don't always feel like they're doing something right in life. And this feels like we're doing something right. I love making the content. I love trying to, making my guys famous. And I really enjoy myself going to a consultation or my people going to a consultation, and they already know who we are before we show up at their doorstep.
Right.
We've established credibility before we even did anything with them, before we even established a relationship with them. As I've grown in faith, and faith is the biggest part and the biggest component of my life. I've done things with my faith over the years, as far as chaplaincy and doing things locally. I believe that if you're a Christian, God has put you in whatever workplace you're in to be a minister of His glory there. And so, okay, what does that mean for the business then? You have all these people that are coming from so many different parts of life. Some people might have a great home life. Some people might have not such a great home life. And they want to come to work and not feel more of the lack of peace that they've had. So how do we make this a happy work environment? How do we make this a place where people want to have them feel what I feel every day, going into work, enjoying going to work? That to me is really, really cool, to create a habitat and a culture, a place, an environment for people to come to and feel at ease and feel peace and happiness, which is bizarre because people don't necessarily associate those things with work.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's been part of one of the things that I really enjoy and love.
Amazing. Yeah. I think it's probably one of the biggest kicks too, is when you have that great team.
Yeah.
And like you say, it feels good to go in every day and be creative and have conversations. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that still drives me. And in multiple businesses with different people, like it's so much fun. And I think watching people buy their first home or, their first vehicle or whatever it might be, like being a small part of that in some way is always rewarding. And I think, I can see the value you create with your team and likely the direction that you without being there. I'm sure I can just tell with the vibe of what I see on Instagram, the vibe that's there.
Yeah.
And maybe we can talk about that a little bit, like culture in the company. Like How do you try and promote it? Like, what sort of things do you guys work on to make people feel that way and make them feel included and that there's a goal and some direction to, for everybody to do together?
Yeah. I'd first start off by saying I know so well what it's like to have not a great culture.
Right.
We went through a period of time where we had some very toxic people, and I allowed them to stay for far too long, for fear of what might happen if I let them go.
Mm-hmm.
People have said before, you can train a good attitude, but somebody walks in with not the greatest attitude with all the skill, which one are you going to choose?
Right.
And I didn't always look at it that way. I wanted the people who could just get the job done, didn't really care about what kind of vibe they could bring to the company. So one of the things that it's just etched in my skull now. Like we have it so good right now that like any inkling of that, like that's just going to be severed
Right.
so fast. Everything kind of flows to the top, right? So it's like I need to be a person who is making my management team feel welcomed, and I need to make sure that they are doing that. Also, that trickles down then to the people that they're managing, and that those foremen on site are also doing that with their people. There's always stuff to do, like buying guys lunches and all that kind of stuff, but you can do that, but and you can fake that really well.
Absolutely.
Right? Like people are not dumb. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can try to put on a face and buy guys lunches, but if the rest of what you're doing sucks, they're going to smell that. Like there's not enough lunches that you can buy somebody to try to buy your way past a crappy environment that you've created. So, I mean, if it is true that all of that flows up and the leader is the one creating that environment, that starts with me then.
Right.
So how do I handle conflict? How do I handle when bad things happen? Well, that starts with me nose deep in my Bible every morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am going to not be the greatest person if I don't have that. I have found that my ultimate peace and my ultimate joy comes from God. And now, okay, I get that nourishment and wisdom from reading my word every day. Okay, now I'm charged up. Now I can go bring that to the rest of the team. And hopefully that's, permeating throughout the rest of the roots of the culture of the company. So, I try to make sure, in a practical sense, I try to, as much as I can, be there. And I don't have to be there at morning rollout every morning. Right. My guys that I have right now, chef's kiss.
Right.
Those people are just, I have I'm away right now. No worry in my mind that they're handling everything.
Yeah. No
perfect.
panicking.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. No,
awesome.
My managers are awesome. But I still like to be there. I still like to just, there's some times where they hire out, some new blood comes in and there's just a mowing guy. I want to go shake his hand. I want to go give him a hug. I want to tell him I'm happy that he's here.
Right.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference to people to know that like they're appreciated and not just, hey, like with words, like I want to show up to job sites and I'm genuinely enthused by what these guys are doing. And I don't keep quiet about that. I'm like, you guys are doing such a great job, so that like that can't be fabricated. Like
Right.
if somebody's watching this right now and they're thinking, oh, okay, they're writing notes. Okay, show up to job site, tell a guy good job.
Yeah.
Then you've lost it. Like
Yeah.
somebody's going to sniff
Too
that
late.
out. Humans are well aware of character and attitudes and vibes, and so you have to just. I'm not saying that I'm a good person. I'm not saying that at all. But I think you do have to start with yourself. You have to be a good person in order to create a good environment that people will just naturally see without you stimulating it.
Yeah, I don't think you could say it any better. I think it's very true, and I think what amazes me, because we had a similar struggle years ago where we kept people too long, and that was one thing I was going to just touch on for people that are watching too. Like, you got to cut that stuff out right away.
Yeah,
I think
something bad will happen.
Absolutely.
And that's it. You have to acknowledge it. Like, hey, I'm going to fire this guy. Man, there's going to be some stuff that drops, but it's for a time. You have to choose temporary pain for long-term gain.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree. And I think that's a great lesson for anybody who's struggling with that. And interesting talking, about culture, and I think that whole vibe thing, it's amazing how much different your new hires react when you have a good culture.
Yeah.
And how your team reacts to them, right? Because generally, within a couple of days.
Yeah.
Or, worst case, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I love that about the group we have too, because I think I think it's just a great showing of of the people that you have and kind of what they do and what they talk about to other team members.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of not really having a plan to measure it, because I don't think there is either. I don't think you
Yeah.
can do like a
You
lunch
can't,
a
you can't,
month
you
or
can't SOP your way to a good
no,
culture.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I was on this panel last year in Orlando with a group of guys. Mark Bradley was heading it up, and he asked 5 of us, "What are the metrics you follow throughout the year to gauge how your company's doing?" So everybody had sort of a different opinion on, P&L and jobs completed and revenue and all these different things. And Steve Wheatcroft, I don't know if you know who Steve is, but Steve's a Calgary guy.
Okay.
Who built an incredible business, sold it, I believe, to private equity. Big number, like probably the biggest ever in Canada.
Wow.
And he was on the end, and he said, I gauge it by how many people aren't at the Christmas party. And that always stuck with me. Like he went through and explained why.
Yeah.
Like why would somebody not be there, or why didn't he know that they weren't coming?
Yeah.
Like if the culture's great, somebody would have the courtesy to phone and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I got this other thing," or
right.
traveling with family or whatever it is. I thought that was a great and cool tool.
Yeah.
Right. Good way to measure.
Yeah, that's good.
What didn't you know when you started, and what could you share that would help somebody else that is starting?
Mm-hmm.
And also kind of what's next? What's next for Creekside?
If I'm sharing things with people that are coming up, or folks that maybe want to get into the industry, but they are a little bit afraid to, they have no idea what to do. One thing would be to grow small, to be comfortable and okay with growing in short increments rather than big, because it's so easy to look at a friend of yours or somebody on Instagram and go, wow, I want to be that. And so I want to get this big truck or this really big purchase. The financials have to make sense.
Yeah.
One of the mistakes that I made was not knowing the numbers well enough, early enough, and really studying them. When you look at the finances every day, you're in tune with it, and you can see where money's going, where it's coming from, and what's a valuable thing to spend the money on. I also think that time management is massive. Say no more than you say yes to so many things. When it comes time and when it makes sense, you got to get out of the truck. You have to. There's a sense of you that's like, I don't want my guys to feel like I'm better than them. You don't get it. Like, you have to, if you're going to build a business, you have to value your time, and value your time means you're reading certain books, you're studying certain things, you're going to meetups like this, you're going to conferences, you're learning, and then when you're not learning, you're building the business. You're out there knocking on doors. You can't grow the business when you're directly in the business, and you will always be in the business until a certain point. I mean, to a certain degree, I am kind of on my, I wouldn't say I'm on my exit from being involved in the direct day-to-day of the company, but up until, year ago, maybe, I was responsible for the majority. If I wasn't there, the company wouldn't go. Right. I had to find another gear to stick in that engine so that I could not have to be that gear, so I could be the one turning the engine on, steering that car where it's going to go. That all comes with time, obviously. Like, there's certain things that you do just have to do. Your time is so much more valuable than money, because you think, well, if I do it, I know it'll get done twice as fast. Okay, well, then price it to be done not as fast by somebody else, so that you can go and do things that they can't do. So you always have to be looking at, okay, this task that I'm doing right now, is it possible that somebody else in my company could be doing this? Yes. It's like a flow chart. Yes. Okay. Delegate, which is so freaking hard. It is so hard. One of my last things that I was doing was doing the sales, and I had my whole approach. I had the things that I was doing, and I brought a guy on now. He's doing amazing. But it took some trust for me to go, I see that lead come through, and I'm like, that's one I would do. Okay. All right. You take it. And he's doing great. You have to obviously monitor that and manage that, but I think growing small is really important. Making sure that your time is spent not just well, but like what is the absolute best. You have to look at every minute of every day and go, what is the best use of my time as it relates to the growth of this company right now? When you really start to think about it, you'll find 1 to 2 hours that you can reclaim in your day, that you can be doing other things that will greatly grow the company. Third thing I would say would be YouTube University is a thing.
Right.
There, you have more than enough information at your fingertips to know anything. And I mean that sincerely. Like I started doing a little bit of real estate, and I only know what I know by binge watching tons and tons and tons of YouTube content. And nowadays, especially in the hardscape industry, there's no reason to not know anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have, seminars there in conferences like what we just were at. Preston at Hardscape Mentor, he does a whole thing. I have my buddy Sam at Atlas, Sam Gemble.
Mm-hmm.
He does a ton of stuff. There's so many individual things now that are paid and unpaid that can help you grow. So I think having some sort of mentorship, some sort of community is really, really huge. But in the times when you're like laying in bed at night going, I could be doing something right now, pop open a YouTube video, because it's just so. When I was coming up, that wasn't available.
Right.
That wasn't available. And now, I mean, I'd be so much farther along if I had then what I have now, with all types of content. So when you're growing, you want to be able to pitch a project. You want to be able to pitch something to a client. And if you don't know what you're talking about, they'll know. And you also want to know what you're doing, because once you're done with that project, you want to have known that you did it correctly, so those people will refer you, but not just refer you today, but refer you 5 years from now when that patio's not falling apart. It's so you have to know what you're doing. That's something that I encounter so frequently is, one of my clients says, I can't go with you, Mike. This guy offered me a price that's half the price. I just got to go with it. I'm going, what can I say? And I give them all the spiel that I want. I hate it for the client, because they were shown a flashy price by probably an innocent kid who didn't have it all figured out. He was trying to just get his feet wet.
Yeah, it's not always intentional.
It's not always intentional.
Yeah.
But those people are calling me back saying my patio's falling apart and I can't get a hold of the guy. That wouldn't have happened if that guy had, maybe he did suck as a person. Who knows? But I'm going to guess that they probably didn't. They weren't well informed.
Right.
I think that having a head full of knowledge is massive. And then as you grow, then you start to get into the people game. You go from craft to culture. That's a podcast name right there, from craft to culture.
Yeah, it's a great one.
You have to start learning people. You go from, okay, you've learned the craft, great. Now you teach other people how to learn the craft, great. Now you have to move on to an entirely different skill set, learning people, because that is far more complex than any craft that you're going to know about. And you have to know how people think. You have to be emotionally intelligent. Like there's a guy who has books on the 5 love languages, and that's in intimate romantic relationships, and that's how to speak lovingly, because everybody receives love differently. That doesn't stop in romantic. That exists because every person is wired differently. So in the workplace, the same thing applies. You have to know people. You have to be able to read and study people, be able to analyze them a little bit to go, okay, how do I best steer them? If they're a resource coming to me, you as a business owner are now a resource allocator, and you have to steward those resources wisely. So if you have somebody in sales, as needs to be as a project manager, you have to have enough emotional IQ to know how to do that, know when to make that move. So that's something to also be studying while you're studying your craft, is studying, how do I manage people? Because you're messing with people's lives.
Right.
People they spend tons, the majority of their awake hours are spent at their workplace. And you're the one that they're looking to. So
Definitely.
what are you going to do with it? So
one of the things I wanted to talk about, and you touched on it there, was calendaring or making time for yourself. What are some of the tricks, or do you have a couple tricks you can throw out that, or strategies that, like, there's your must complete every day, and the reading, I'm sure fitness is a big part of your life as well. How do you make time around your business to do that sort of stuff?
Well, I'm not married and I don't have kids.
Right.
So my life is going to look far different than somebody who does.
Yes.
And if that ever comes for me, then I will have to make some adjustments myself. But, I wake up very early. You know, a non-negotiable for me, and I say non-negotiable loosely because there's some days where I'm like, I just gotta get to the office, but
Right.
I really want to make time to get in my Bible, to get into some prayer, and make sure that my relationship with God is right, because then my relationship with everybody else won't be right if I don't. So I want to get time for that, get to work. You know, there's the high hellos of the day. Then there's tons of emails that you have to go through and different meetings with different people. And then I usually try to get out around 2, like 1:30 or 2 o'clock. And that's when I go to the gym, and that's my happy place. That's well, and I'm still getting phone calls, and
Right.
but I'm able to at least do that while I'm, I'm getting my next wind of energy. So I'm in the gym usually for an hour and a half to 2 hours every single day.
Yeah.
And I make, and that's not just because I'm trying, like it at first was a discipline, but now I love it. But what's so great about that is that right after that, I'm so charged up to get right back into it. So
Right.
then I go back home, I open up my laptop, and I'm working for usually another 2-3 hours. And sometimes I put on a movie, and towards 7 o'clock, and I'm editing some videos, because I enjoy that. That's relaxing
Right.
to me. And then of course, there's time for friends and church and all that kind of stuff too. And you're always going to allocate time to what is of most value to you. So I don't necessarily have like a strategy or something in place to where I'm like, hey, I have this structure here. At this time, I read emails. It's kind of a free for all, but that's just how I operate. And I know other people probably would want to do that differently, which is perfectly fine. But I do think it's very important to have some things that are not just you're living for the weekend, because most weekends I'm working.
Right.
So as an entrepreneur, people think, well, I'm gonna go be my own business owner so I can make my own schedule.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good luck with
You're gonna make your own schedule, working all the time now.
Right. Yeah.
It never shuts off for you. But that's why I think it's important to do it every day, not just for the weekends, because a lot of weekends your brain is just going and you're working.
Yeah. Love it. I agree. I think it's something that a lot of people don't put enough effort into, and they're just constantly in this momentum battle of trying to find the time, and they just never catch up and never feel like they've caught up. But
yeah.
The last thing I wanted to touch on was social media.
Yeah.
Because you're obviously killing it. You 70,000 on Instagram, 100+ on TikTok, and then YouTube, Facebook. What do you think makes you good at it? Because I've been following along for a long time. I never flip past.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to see what you've got to say. I want to see what you're doing. I actually really like the reels when you go in to fix somebody's other work.
Yeah.
Those are very interesting. I think hopefully very helpful for younger guys who aren't 100% sure how to do proper installs.
Yeah.
What could you kind of tell other business owners that would help them with their social media?
So I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and one of the things that he would always say is it's quantity over quality when it comes to social media. There was a time where that wasn't the case, because you had to make YouTube videos that were long form content, and it had to be curated for people to actually watch it. Now people just want authenticity. It's an interesting dynamic, actually, because you have brands, big name brands nowadays, that are putting a lot of money to pay influencers to do things that are just normal and organic to promote their brand. You still have a lot of commercials, but you can tell when something is a commercial.
Yes.
And you want to flip past it. Like within a second, your spidey senses go up and you're like, this is an ad. I don't want it.
Right.
And so that should speak to how we create content nowadays. People want authenticity. They want what's original. They don't need you to have it all fancy curated, to have the right music, to have the right cuts and here and there. They want it raw, which is cool. People crave authenticity. What do you know? Who knew?
Yeah, who knew? Who knew?
So I think that should be a breath of relief to most people who are not professional video editors or professional, doing this kind of stuff.
Right.
Just be you. And like, if you have a friend, that means that they like you. That means that there's something about your personality, some way that you talk, something that you talk about that they like. So if one person likes that, there might be other people that like that as well. So just talk. Just whip out your phone and just talk to it.
Right.
And you know what? You'll find your tribe. And your tribe will find you. And that's just how social media works these days. You build a following and an audience of people who want to follow you. And that's not something that I tried to do. I just started doing it and it worked. And you know, what's so funny is that some of the content that I have that'll go to 2-3 million, views were the ones that took me 15 seconds to film and post.
Crazy.
But the ones that I go and spend all this time, cutting the film to the beat of the song, no,
Funny.
no. It's heartbreaking because I'm like, yeah, this is art that I just created here, and I'm like, I'm getting into this thing, and nobody else did,
Right.
but that's okay. People want raw authenticity.
Amazing. I think that's amazing advice, and I think it's very true. And I think the power of it is incredible.
Yeah.
To help with branding and your personality, and like you said earlier too, about credibility with your customers when you arrive, because often they're going there first.
Yeah.
Right. To check out, even before your website.
Everybody.
Even before your website.
If I want a plumber, I'm going to go on Instagram and see what he's about.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's such a great tool for all of us, and I think it's also brought a lot of us closer together.
Yeah.
Right, and being able to have that contact, you and I would have never met.
That's right.
Right. So, and by the way, amazing to meet you today.
Yeah.
Been a fan for a long time, and yeah, it's funny that the timing worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for coming on, and
100%, man.
We'll look forward to seeing you again.
This venture. This is really cool. I'm looking forward to following along and seeing the other people that you host. You ask fantastic questions. You've obviously. You have a wealth of wisdom within you, and you're seeking to extract that from other people too. So this is going to go far. I'm really
appreciate it. Yeah, we're hope so. We've got big plans.
Yeah,
should be good.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
100%.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.